You know, it's funny how your perspective can change during the course of a build. When I first bought the 78 Camaro project car for Horsepower Monster, the interior didn't seem so bad, especially compared to the rotten paint. But now that we've got a good coat of Eastwood flat black on the outside, the interior has been bugging me a whole lot. Now, I've already replaced the dash pad and dyed the door panels and done some other small things like that, but this red worn out carpet is really starting to drive me crazy. Not to mention the disco era correct leather seats. So we're going to do something about it, make the interior of the Camaro a whole lot nicer place to spend time in without breaking the bank. Of course, the first step is to strip out the existing interior. It's hard to believe that this car is nearly 40 years old until I yanked out the seats and found the collected years of funk. It was pretty nasty, and in the footwells the carpet was worn all the way down to the backing. Getting the carpet out wasn't difficult. I already mentioned that it was already old and rotted, so I just ripped it out in sections and then collected my treasure. 49 more cents and a lug nut. We're getting rich slowly. Next came the insulation. It was pretty nasty too. Most of it pulled right up, but sections stayed behind where the underlayer was glued down. And I also found a few rusty spots in the floorboards. But a little time with an electric grinder, sometimes with a wire brush attached, and sometimes with a grinding disc, took care of both issues. Before going any further, I wanted to make sure no surface rust returned on the floorboards underneath the carpet. After grinding away the rust, a couple coats of paint over rust will encapsulate those areas and keep the rust from coming back. And since we're ripping out the original carpet, it only makes sense to upgrade the heat and sound insulation to modern standards while we're at it. For that, I turned to DEI and they sent me this kit. That includes their excellent boom mat material, which cuts down on vibrations in the metal, as well as heat and other types of sound coming into the cabin. DEI's Undercarpet Light, which can go anywhere, but we're putting it underneath the carpet for a little more padding and even improved sound deadening. It's going to be like a Cadillac inside this Camaro. And finally, for those hard to reach areas that we can't reach with the boom mat, we've got our secret weapon. It's DEI's spray-on sound deadening material. What's cool about this kit is it doesn't require any special skills or tools to apply. All we need is a pair of scissors to cut the boom mat and a roller to make sure the adhesive is fully locked against the car. Now, I've already vacuumed and wiped down the floorboards to get all the dust out, just so that the boom mat can adhere securely. Now, DEI recommends you don't have to have any more than 25 to 50% coverage for the boom mat to do its job, but the stuff isn't heavy, and overdoing it isn't going to hurt anything, so it's better to be safe than sorry. Now, applying the boom mat, once you figure out where you want to place it, couldn't be any simpler. You just peel back the plastic backing and stick it down. Now, DEI does recommend that you use a roller. They'll sell you one. I already had one. I found it cheap on eBay. You just use it to roll the mat down to help make sure it gets a good grip against the metal. The boom mat material is really cool stuff. The adhesive material means that this can be applied to both vertical and overhead surfaces. It insulates both heat and noise, but what it's really exceptional for is absorbing those low frequency noise and vibrations that travels through the sheet metal from the engine and exhaust. And that seems to be an issue in a lot of older cars. This will make the interior of the Camaro a much nicer place to spend a lot of time. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got the bolt holes here for mounting the driver's seat, and I definitely don't want to cover them up with the boom mat. Thankfully, cutting the boom mat material is easy with either a razor blade, a knife, or even a pair of scissors. Because the material doesn't require 100% coverage, you don't have to be that precise. I just cut the mat horizontally and left an open strip right across so that all the bolt holes are left exposed. When applying the boom mat, just take your time and work your way from one end to the other, making sure you get good contact in the low areas. Then go back over everything with a roller using lots of pressure to give the adhesive backing a good opportunity to lock the mat in place. Well, it's no work of art, But as you can see, DEI sends enough in the kit to definitely exceed the 50% recommendation for coverage on the floorboard. What's definitely cool about the boom mat is it's easily conformable to all the curves and bends and everything going on in the floorboard you see here. What I realized I forgot right before I finished was to show you before and after. So I've still got one area I want to get done and let you hear the before. Boom mat on the roof does a great job of cutting noise and is thin enough not to interfere with the headliner. So now I've got two boom mat sections up top, and you've heard the before. Now let's hear the after. Pretty impressive. Lots of people will stop with the boom mat and be happy with the results, but we decided to also try out the company's Undercarpet Light. Undercarpet Light is DEI's advanced insulator for both ambient sound and temperature. While boom mat will dampen the drone that comes from low frequency vibrations traveling through the sheet metal, the Undercarpet Light will cut all the other exterior sounds. Plus, it's also a great thermal insulator, meaning that the Camaro will be warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer, if I ever get around to installing air conditioning. It comes in a big blanket and lays down just like carpet, except it isn't formed, so it'll require a few adjustments to get to fit around the transmission tunnel and other areas with compound curves. The stuff is made from some high-tech polyester fiberglass mix and is much easier to cut with a big pair of scissors than with a knife. It's also intended to go gray side up, and after aligning one side with the door sill, I simply cut away areas where there was extra material, like around the base of the transmission tunnel, then lightly tape the two sides back together. Voila! Perfect fit. Before moving on to the carpet, I needed to mark the holes to mount the seats. There are a few different methods for marking the locations, but I prefer to use set screws if you can find them in the right size. There are two reasons for this. First, after threading the set screws into the mounting holes, it's easy to find them later through the installation and cut holes for them to fit through. The second reason, well, that's a bit tough to explain, so you just have to see for yourself in the follow-up video where I install new seats. Believe me, it's pretty cool. After all the holes are marked, it's time to move on to the carpet. There are lots of resources for molded carpet, but I got this one from National Parts Depot. Installation really is as simple as getting it centered up, pushing out the wrinkles, trimming any excess, and of course, cutting holes for the seat mounting bolts using the set screws. By the way, using set screws here instead of bolts allows you to cut smaller holes so the finished product looks a bit tidier. Then all that's left is to reinstall the side panels, rear seats, seat buckles, and new door sills. Now that I got this carpet in, the first thing I'll wind up doing is buying floor mats and covering it all up. The results really do make a huge difference in the look of the interior, and the boom mat and Undercarpet Light from DEI should also make it a much more comfortable driving environment. In fact, it turned out so well, there is no way I'm going to be able to live with these grungy old seats back in the car. But that's okay, I've got a plan. We're going to take care of it in the next step for this Camaro build-up. Thanks for watching.